The world is rapidly changing, and before our eyes, two generations are forming that are fundamentally different from each other. Generation Z, born in the late 90s and early 2000s, is already entering adulthood, and following them is Generation Alpha, children born after 2010. These differences are not just a curious sociological phenomenon. Parents are lost, not knowing how to find common ground with their children. Teachers encounter students who think completely differently. Employers are puzzled as to why proven motivational methods no longer work. The childhood of each generation shapes their future perception of the world, and understanding these profound differences becomes the key to successful interaction in the family, school, and at work. Technology has divided these two generations with an invisible yet powerful wall. Generation Z can be called the last witnesses of the analog world. They remember times when the internet was a luxury and smartphones seemed like fantasy. They have come all the way from floppy disks to cloud storage, from landline calls to real-time video communication. This adaptation has made them incredibly flexible technology users. Generation Alpha was born into a completely different reality. For them, voice assistants, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality are not achievements of progress, but a natural habitat. A 3-year-old intuitively understands how to operate a tablet without a single lesson. This is not just a skill. It is an innate ability to think in digital categories. The differences are evident even in their approach to problem solving. Zs first try to figure things out themselves. Then they search for information online. Alphas instantly turn to digital assistants or expect technology to offer a solution itself. They don't just use artificial intelligence. They interact with it as an equal partner. For Generation Z, technology remains a tool, albeit a very powerful one. For Generation Alpha, technology becomes an extension of their consciousness. This chasm defines not only the ways they interact with the world, but also shapes fundamentally different types of thinking that will influence all aspects of their lives. Language is a living organism that evolves alongside those who use it. And today, we are witnessing a true linguistic revolution. Generation Z has created its own communication system, where a single emoji can replace an entire paragraph. And a meme conveys complex emotions better than any words. They masterfully juggle abbreviations, create new meanings for old words, and communicate through references to popular culture. But even their revolutionary approach to language seems conservative compared to what Generation Alpha is doing. Alphas don't just adapt language, they rethink it. Voice messages are more natural to them than text. They think in sounds, intonations, pauses. Written speech becomes archaic when you can convey a mood with the timbre of your voice or add augmented reality to your message. Zetas still remember the rules of grammar and punctuation, even if they intentionally break them. Alphas perceive these rules as outdated restrictions. Their communication becomes a multimedia symphony, where words, sounds, images, and interactive elements merge into a single message. Their attitude towards privacy and communication is particularly striking. Zetas have learned to balance openness and caution, creating different versions of themselves for different platforms. Alphas are growing up in a world where the boundaries between public and private are blurred. Their communication becomes more spontaneous, but also more vulnerable. These changes in language are not just forming new ways of communicating, they are creating new types of thinking, new ways of processing information, and building relationships with the world. A system of values is an invisible compass that guides every human decision. And today, we are witnessing an amazing transformation of this compass between two generations. Generation Z grew up on ideas of personal freedom and self-expression. Their mantra is, "Be yourself." Their goal is to find their own path in life. They value authenticity above all else, and are ready to fight for the right to be unique. Environmental consciousness has become their distinguishing feature. They were the first to massively refuse plastic, choose ethical brands, and demand corporate responsibility for the planet. Generation Alpha inherits these values, but radically reinterprets them. Their individualism paradoxically becomes collective. They understand that in a hyper-connected world, personal success is impossible without general well-being. Environmental consciousness transforms into global thinking. They see the planet as a single ecosystem where every action affects everyone else. Alphas don't just buy eco-friendly products. They expect the entire system of production and consumption to be rebuilt according to sustainability principles. Their collective consciousness manifests in a desire for collaborative problem-solving. If Gen Z organizes protests and rallies, Alphas create digital platforms to coordinate actions worldwide. They think in terms of planetary scale and expect immediate results from their initiatives. This evolution of values signifies a fundamental shift in how future generations will build society, economy, and relationships between people. Education is undergoing its most radical transformation in centuries, and this revolution is unfolding right at the intersection of two generations. The traditional model of learning, based on memorizing facts and reproducing ready-made solutions, is collapsing before our eyes. Generation Z has already forced educators to reconsider their teaching approaches. Gen Z demanded interactivity, gamification, and instant feedback. They wanted to see the practical benefit of each lesson and understand how to apply the acquired knowledge in real life. Educational platforms responded by creating gaming elements in learning. Points, levels, and achievements turned dull lessons into exciting quests. But what worked with Generation Z is becoming ineffective for Generation Alpha. Alphas perceive gamification as a primitive attempt to engage them. They intuitively sense the artificiality of game mechanics superimposed on educational content. Their brains, shaped in an era of personalized algorithms, demand a completely different approach. Alphas expect the educational system to adapt to their individual pace, thinking style, and interests in real time. They don't want to learn math through abstract problems. They want to create their own projects where mathematical principles become a tool for realizing their ideas. Artificial intelligence becomes their personal mentor, understanding their strengths and helping them overcome difficulties. Generation Alpha learns not linearly, but in a networked way. They can simultaneously study several subjects, finding unexpected connections between them. Their attention works differently. They are capable of deep concentration, but only on what truly interests them. Forcing them to study uninteresting material causes not just boredom, but active resistance. Educators are discovering that success in teaching Generation Alpha depends not on the quality of material delivery, but on the ability to create an environment where each child can find their own path to knowledge. This revolution requires a complete rethinking of the teacher's role. From an information transmitter, they transform into a curator of the educational experience. Social networks have become digital mirrors reflecting the soul of each generation. And these reflections differ drastically between Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Gen Z meticulously and deliberately crafted their online identity. They remember a time when social media was an augmentation of real life, not its replacement. Gen Z mastered the art of selective self-presentation. They carefully choose which version of themselves to show on Instagram, which on TikTok, and which to reserve for close friends. Their digital persona is a well-thought-out construct, where every post serves a specific purpose. Gen Alpha is growing up in a world where the boundary between online and offline has practically disappeared. Their self-presentation is spontaneous and multi-layered at the same time. Alphas don't create an image for social media. They live within it naturally, as an extension of physical space. Their content is more chaotic, yet paradoxically more authentic. The differences in the perception of privacy are striking. Gen Z grew up understanding that the internet remembers everything, so they cautiously dose out personal information. Alphas perceive transparency as the norm. They share emotions in real time, broadcast everyday moments, and see no threat in it. Their approach to privacy isn't carefree. It's simply based on different principles. They believe there's nothing to hide if you live honestly. Content consumption methods also differ radically. Gen Z is still capable of prolonged viewing and thoughtful analysis. Alphas think in microformats. Their attention works like a scanner, instantly extracting the essence from the information stream. They don't scroll through the feed. They absorb it intuitively, subconsciously filtering relevant content. These differences are shaping two fundamentally different types of digital behavior that will define the development of social platforms for decades to come. The labor market is undergoing a tectonic shift, and the epicenter of these changes runs right through the generational divide. Generation Z has already turned traditional career notions upside down, but what Generation Alpha is preparing will eclipse all previous revolutions. Gen Z was the first to reject the one job for life model. They turned instability into an advantage, creating the gig economy, where freelancing became not a forced measure, but a conscious choice. For them, work is not a place you go to, but an activity you can perform from anywhere. They value flexibility over stability and are willing to change fields for personal growth. Gen Z has learned to monetize hobbies and turn passions into sources of income. Their resumes look like a kaleidoscope of diverse experiences, not a linear career ladder. Generation Alpha goes even further. They are not just changing the rules of the game, they are creating an entirely new game. Alphas perceive work as a form of creative self-expression, where earnings become a side effect of self-realization. They are not interested in a career in the traditional sense. They want to create projects that will change the world. Alphas think in terms of ecosystems, not positions. They see themselves not as company employees, but as creators of their own micro-universes, where work, creativity, and life merge into a single whole. For them, artificial intelligence is not a threat to jobs, but a partner in creating something fundamentally new. The differences in motivation are strikingly profound. Gen Z seeks a balance between work and personal life. Alphas don't understand why they should be separated. For them, the ideal job is an extension of their personality, a way to influence the world and realize their values. They are willing to work harder and more intensely, but only on what has deep meaning for them. These changes are forcing employers to completely rethink their approaches to hiring, motivation, and personnel management. Psychological health has become a battlefield between two worlds. Generation Z was the first to encounter a unique phenomenon: the need to protect their psyche from the digital chaos they themselves created. Their approach to mental well-being was formed through trial and error. Gen Z learned to recognize digital burnout, set boundaries with social media, and find a balance between online and offline life. They were the first to openly discuss depression, anxiety, and panic attacks, breaking the taboos surrounding mental disorders. Their emotional intelligence developed through memes, which became a way to express complex feelings, and through online communities where they could find support among strangers. Generation Alpha is growing up in a world where mental health care has become the norm, not the exception. Their brains are formed under conditions of constant digital stimulation, which creates fundamentally different mechanisms of stress resistance. Alphas do not fight with technology for their psychological well-being. They integrate it into their self-defense system. Meditation apps, mood trackers, and AI psychologists become natural tools for their emotional hygiene. The differences in stress processing are striking. Gen Z tends to reflect on and analyze their experiences. Alphas react to stress instantly and intuitively, using digital tools for quick state stabilization. Their emotional intelligence develops not through verbal expression of feelings, but through multimedia formats. Video diaries, voice notes, interactive art projects. The digital environment affects the formation of their adaptive mechanisms in radically different ways. Gen Z learn to survive in an aggressive online environment, developing thick skin and selective attention. Alphas grow up in a safer digital space, but their psyche becomes more sensitive to subtle changes in the information field. Paradoxically, a more protected environment makes them simultaneously more vulnerable and more resilient. They notice problems faster, but also find solutions faster. Consumer behavior has become a true mirror of generational differences, and this reflection reveals fundamentally different approaches to shopping, brands, and the very philosophy of consumption. Generation Z initiated the first revolution in the world of shopping, turning every purchase into an act of self-expression and social responsibility. They were the first to massively scrutinize product ingredients, check the ethical nature of production, and boycott companies whose values did not align with their principles. Gen Z transformed consumption into a conscious choice, where every ruble becomes a vote for a better world. Their purchasing decisions are based on deep analysis. They are willing to spend hours researching reviews, comparing alternatives, and finding the most ethical option. Generation Alpha inherits this consciousness, but radically transforms it into demands for complete transparency and hyper-personalization. Alphas don't just want to know how a product was made. They expect access to the full supply chain in real time. For them, it is unacceptable to buy something without knowing the name of the farmer who grew the coffee, or the working conditions of the laborer who assembled the smartphone. Their consumer behavior becomes an interactive dialogue with brands. Alphas don't just buy products. They participate in their creation through personalization, customization, and feedback. Artificial intelligence analyzes their preferences so precisely that it suggests products even before the need is realized. The differences in attitudes toward brands are striking in their depth. Gen Z values authenticity and consistency. They are willing to pay more for brands that honestly convey their values. Alphas go further, demanding from companies not just ethics, but active participation in solving global problems. For them, a purchase becomes an investment in the planet's future, and they expect measurable results from every consumer decision. Understanding the differences between generations is only half the battle. The real challenge lies in transforming this knowledge into effective interaction tools. Parents, educators, employers, and simply people who want to find common ground with representatives of other generations need concrete strategies. The first principle of successful interaction with Generation Z is recognizing their need for authenticity. They instantly sense falsehood and reject any attempts at manipulation. Speak to them directly, explain the motives behind your decisions, and be ready for an open dialogue. Gen Z values honesty above politeness and will prefer a harsh truth to a pretty lie. When communicating with Generation Alpha, the principle of personalization becomes key. They expect every interaction to be tailored to their individual characteristics. Universal approaches are perceived by them as disrespect for their uniqueness. Use technology to create a personalized experience, from educational programs to work tasks. In the educational sphere, effectiveness is achieved through hybrid methods. For Gen Z, create interactive projects with clear goals and measurable results. For Alphas, offer open-ended tasks where they can independently determine the path to a solution. Use artificial intelligence as an assistant, not a replacement for human mentorship. The work environment requires a radical rethinking. Gen Z needs flexible schedules and the possibility of remote work. Alphas expect full integration of work into their lifestyle. Create project teams where representatives of different generations can complement each other. The experience and caution of Gen Z balances with the innovative thinking and technological intuition of alphas. Understanding generational characteristics becomes the foundation for building a harmonious society, where differences are transformed into advantages and conflicts into opportunities for mutual enrichment and development.